Hello and welcome to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney, and you have found the place where we talk about estate planning, elder law, real estate, and business law, and just about anything else that occurs to us. Give us a call, why don't you? 774-2424. That's area code 616-774-2424, and we'll get your question, comment, or concern on the air. Now, estate planning, of course, is wills, trusts, and probate, elder law, all that long-term care stuff, business law, real estate. You know what that's about. The real estate seems to have peaked. It's been since 2008, so that's 14 years that I've been saying interest rates are going to come up and things are going to go down, and it seems to finally have happened. Only 14 years later. Wow, that's accuracy for you. But seriously, it does look like in the last couple of weeks, the bloom is off the rose as far as the real estate market goes. What does that mean? It means that interest rates, while still, by some measures, historically low, I always think of 6% being a pretty good indicator. And apparently the 30-year mortgage is up to, 5.3, 5.5, something like that. So, but that's not 2% or under 2%, which is what almost got used to that, right? Almost got used to that being the benchmark was 2%. I think that's gone, at least for the foreseeable future. We'll see. Our potentates in Washington seem to be intent, or at the Federal Reserve, and seem to be intent on driving up interest rates as a way of squeezing out inflation. Well, that's kind of how you do it, and it's going to take a lot of interest rate hikes in order to make that happen. What that means is that the deficit is going to explode more than ever because, of course, we've got to pay those interest rates. We're a debtor, right? How many trillions of dollars in debt is the United States? I don't know. Google it. It's a lot. More than you want to look at. That's the reality of it, and that's what we're going to be. So your tax dollars are going to be going for going forward here. People think, oh, well, we'll pay it back in cheaper dollars. We borrow the money now and pay it back in cheaper dollars because inflation will help us. Yeah, well, inflation is also going to drive interest rates. And you know what that means. I don't care what kind of good deal you got on something. When the interest on your credit card is 25%, it's not a good deal at all. So that's one thing to look out for. The other is, here's the thing. America's getting older. I don't know if you've noticed that. Has anyone noticed that? Has anyone noticed that America is getting older? That you're getting older? We're all getting older day by day, right? Sure. And along with that, because there's so many boomers, so many baby boomers, right? So many people born after World War II. I get to be included in that because I think it goes all the way up to 1963 or 64 or something like that. Well, I was 57. So I'm sort of a baby boomer, pretty, I fit in there. But anyway, there's so many of us, and we did not have kids the way our parents had kids. You know what that means? That means if you're from a family of 3, 4, 5, 8 in my case, unless you had 3, 4, 5 kids, or 8, as in my case, the proportion of older people's got to go up, right? Because there are not as many kids around because you didn't make as many as your parents did. This is sort of, I think they call it demographics, right? Not democratics, but demographics. Anyway, the idea here is that as we boomers get older, there are fewer and fewer young people. That means that as a slice of the population pie, the older people are getting to be a bigger slice. Because we're getting older. And the super old people, guess what? They're hanging around. All right? So the older people are hanging around. The boomers, who used to be the younger people, are now getting old. And there are not as many young people coming along. Are you with me on this? Now, does anyone disagree with that? If you do, give me a call, 616-774-2424. We just didn't have the kids our parents had, which means that they're not there when we have needs. All right? Now, thank God I don't have any needs. Well, we all need love to keep us happy, yes. But, as you get older, the needs for care, long-term care, nursing care, whatever, increase. Those needs increase. Is this something that we have to debate? Does everyone agree that as we get older, remember that ad? See, you have to be a certain age so you even remember this. Remember the ad, oh, you're not getting older, you're getting better? What a freaking joke that was. Yeah, you're getting better. Well, anyway, you are getting older. That part of it's for sure. I think it was for hair color or something, which doesn't bother me since I have hardly any. So, point being, we're in a society right now where there are more and more older people. The older you get, the more care you need. I don't know. I mean, is that silly to say? Is that like, oh, I don't believe it. I think we're getting younger. Hey, it ain't the Pepsi generation anymore, okay? This isn't the 60s when, the population, the age of the population was actually going down because of all the kids. We're not there anymore. We're in a different environment. We're in a different place. So I just want to make sure that we don't have any disagreement about that, right? That as time goes by, America's getting older and older and older. And the proportion of the population that's old keeps going up. What that means, I think, you tell me if I'm wrong. I would love to be wrong about this. But what that means is we're going to need, all right? We're going to need, the older people, are going to need more care as things go by. And there's fewer people to give the care. How does that make sense? Let's see now. If there's more older people and there's fewer younger people, and the older people need more care, and the younger people aren't around to give that care, how's that going to work? Well, this thing called supply and demand, you know what I mean? The less of the supply, the more of the demand. Guess what happens to price? Look at the gas pump, if you're wondering. And it's not like we can go to the Saudis on bended knee like Puddinhead Wilson over there, and say, oh, please, pump some more kids. Pump some more of that oil out of the ground. Yeah. They don't even take his phone call, right? But now the prices are as high as they are. Well, yeah, maybe we'll sell you some more of this stuff at this huge price as a favor to you. What kind of humiliation is that? Oh, my goodness. But that's where we're at, okay? But you see, you can't do that when it comes to kids, when it comes to needing caregivers or whatever. It just doesn't work that way because they're not like lying around in the ground just waiting for you to turn on the pump and pump them out. Are you with me on this? I mean, is that crazy? I don't know. So we're getting older. Older people are a bigger piece of the pie. They need more care. And there's fewer people to give the care. And guess what? The people who have dedicated their lives to providing the care, they've had enough. Nurses. I mean, if you look around at the nursing population, nurses are going down, right? Hundreds of thousands of nurses every year quit the profession, and it's accelerating. If you talk to anybody who is a nurse, if you know any nurses, ask them. Ask them about burnout. Ask them about overwork. Ask them about any part of their experience. They're leaving the profession. How do we know they're leaving the profession? We know they're leaving the profession because there's fewer of them. That's one way you know. The other is when it comes to looking at the compensation for them. You say, well, pay them more. They've tried that. It doesn't work. You know what the average cost for a nurse right now is? Average wage? It's around $40 an hour. So if you're a nurse, good thing to get into, right? Good thing to get into. Why? Because it's $40 an hour. And you can get double time for weekend duty. If you're willing to work on the weekend, they'll pay you twice as much. And give you a bonus just for showing up. Would you think that at $80 an hour and a signing bonus just for showing up, you would think they'd be beating down the doors for these positions, to take those hours? You would be wrong, quite wrong. They're not. Still can't find them. So let's recap. America's getting older. More older people than younger people. Older people need more care. Caregivers aren't there. Gee, I wonder what the result of that will be. When we get back, we'll talk about it a little bit more. You're listening to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. Welcome back to the David Carrier Show. This is David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. So we're talking, what is the what are we looking at these days? I mean, what is happening? Well, first we've got 616-774, I always forget this, 616-774-2424. That's area code 616-774-2424. If you have a question, comment, or concern about any of the stuff we talk about, wills, trusts, probate, if you're wondering, high cost of long-term care, all that kind of stuff, give us a call, 616-774-2424. You can always drop me an email, david@davidcarrierlaw.com, or go to the website, davidcarrierlaw.com, and all kinds of stuff over there. You can leave us a note, happy Graham. That's always like to get those. So anyway, where are we at right now? Well, we've got some underlying what they call root causes. Yes, root causes. We've got people getting older. We've got the proportion of the population pie that's gray keeps getting bigger. And we've got folks who, as they get older, they have more needs. I know these are very controversial statements. I hope not. It seems pretty obvious that this is what's going on. So the older you get, the more care you need. How do we provide for that? Well, nurses are one way, except that the nursing profession seems to be less and less popular as we go along. It's very difficult for facilities to get nursing staff. Difficult for hospitals, difficult for long-term care facility to get the nurses that they need. Even paying large sums of money, even paying large hour, $80 an hour, signing bonuses, the whole 9 yards, still very difficult to find folks who are willing to do the work. And you say, well, that's everywhere. I say, well, yeah, but it's especially bad with the long-term care. This is a skilled nursing position. A skilled position. You need a degree. You can't just learn it in a 3-week training course. I mean, so what's going on? Well, there's a couple other things going on. Inflation, right? Right now, what you pay in the grocery store, forget about fuel because that's up ridiculous. But just look at what you're paying in the grocery store. It's like 8% on an annual basis. 8%, 8.3, I think is what it is. And people say, "Oh, that's terrible," and they're right. That is terrible. You know what's worse? If you look at what they call the producer price index, this is the rate of inflation. The rate of inflation for the people who make stuff. Okay? What do you suppose their inflation rate is? Right now, you're paying 8% more at the store. You know what they're paying? More than 16%. More than 16% for the stuff that goes into the stuff that you buy at the store. So do you think that inflation is going to stay at 8% when the people who are making the stuff that you're buying are paying twice as much? 16% more? I don't think so. And you look at the infant formula thing. How did that happen? Oh, supply chain. Oh, it was the FDA were idiots and shut down the plant. Silly stuff like that. Well, that adds to it. There's no question. No question that it adds to it when government does stupid stuff, shut down oil drilling, shut down pipelines, shut down leases of oil, of oil properties. Are you aware of this? I mean, they've shut down millions of acres that were due to go up for lease. Just shut it down. We're not going to do that. Pipeline? We don't need that. Oh, look, the gas prices went up. Oh, please, Saudi Arabia, please give us some more oil. Please sell us some more oil at 5 times what it used to cost. It's ridiculous. But that's where we're at. What does that mean for you? What does that mean, in your life? What I would suggest that maybe what it means is you should do so. I know, look, there are people out there, oh, just do a ladybird deed. Oh, just do a this, just do a that. Don't worry about it. These things, this is the way it goes. Have you heard that? No, there's no problem here. Don't worry about it. Ridiculous. People who counsel you not even to take the simplest steps to protect yourself. And we're in a situation right now where if you don't do it, no one's doing it for you. What are they going to do? Go beg Saudi Arabia? Oh, please send us some nurses because my mom needs long-term care, or something, because my spouse needs You think that's going to happen? It's a rugged situation we're in. But there are things that can be done about it. It's not like, I don't know. Do you think? Would it be a good idea in this situation, in the environment we're in? Would you rather have your savings intact, or would you rather spend them out as quickly as you could? Well, what do you think would be? Would you like to be able to pay the higher cost? What if there was a way to preserve what you have, to protect what you value? Oh my goodness, who says that? Right? What if there were a way so that you didn't go broke, you didn't have to? Would that be a good idea? Would it be worth exploring if you didn't have to pay for what you can't afford? Right? Would it be a good idea to even if you could afford it, would it be a good idea to hang on to your money as long as you could? I think there's a lot of people out there taking advantage of, exploiting Social Security. Every month you get a check. Woo! But wait a second, you have a 401k, you have a pension. Give back that Social Security. You think we're not coming to that? Medicare. You don't need Medicare. You can pay for those knees. Just, mortgage your house. Think we're not going to get to that point? I don't know. Hope not. I mean, do you think that the folks, these guys can't even pump oil. They can't even make baby formula. Think they're worried about your hip? I don't know. Seems like a dicey situation. Give us a call, why don't you? 774-2424, area code 616-774-2424. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. Welcome back to the David Carrier Show. Book 'em, Dano. This is the place where we talk about estate planning, elder law, real estate, and business law. So are we in a sorry states of America? Kinda. Seems like. We were pretty happy there. People, at least selling their houses, were pretty happy because folks were rolling up with pickup trucks full of cash to pay them off next week. All the rest of that. That was good. Right? That worked pretty well for a while. The bloom's off that rose, though, with interest rates going up. And supply is, well, if you're a first-time home buyer, at least that's good for you, because even though your ability to buy a house is down by 40% because the interest rates have gone up so high, right? Even though your ability to buy the thing has gone down, at least there's more of them that you can't afford to buy now. Yay! Hooray for that. Plus inflation, current rates of inflation 8%, but we can see what's gonna be coming down the pike, because the people who are making the stuff that you buy in the store, so your prices in the store are up 8%. The prices of things that people use to make the stuff that they put in the store is up 16%, the producer price index. So, oh yeah, this is transitory. Oh yeah, this is because of a war in Russia. Oh yeah, because, none of that stuff is true. It's all a bunch of blame shifting baloney. And now apparently $5 a gallon gasoline. That's a thing everywhere. So, aren't we grateful now to the the potentates and the sheiks in the Middle East? At least we don't have to go beg Russia for oil anymore. Now we're begging those folks. And now that it's, what? How many times more than it used to be? Now, oh, yeah, okay. If you really want us to, I guess we'll sell it to you. Sure. Just ridiculous. And that's where we're at. That's the situation. That's the situation we're in terms of how do you live day to day. I'm suggesting that we back off a little bit and let's look at the sort of the bigger picture, especially if you're a seasoned citizen. What do things look like for you? Well, number one, you're living longer. So if you thought you're going to be dead by 70, sorry to disappoint you, pal. Even COVID didn't put much of a dent in the older population. Even though COVID, who did COVID kill? It killed the oldest, people in nursing homes, killed people with a lot of other things that were going to get them sooner or later anyway. And COVID made it sooner. It didn't kill the kids in the school. Okay? It didn't. I mean, look at the numbers. Go to the CDC, has all the numbers for you. Right? It didn't. It didn't kill younger people. It didn't kill working people. You have to get over 50 before you start seeing meaningful. And I'm not saying that people didn't get it. I'm not saying there wasn't fatigue and all the rest of this stuff. I'm just saying, if you look at who died, right, and if you look at who had the most serious consequences, it wasn't younger folks. It was older folks. And even with the COVID, right, we turned the nation inside out, whole world, oh my goodness, pandemic, right? Terrible. All right. It was still the older people who died in nursing homes because we didn't know how to deal with it. Well, now we know how to deal with it. Get the vaccines, whatever. Keep washing your hands, okay? And in the meantime, let's let little school kids wear masks and pretend that does anything. It's just ridiculous. I mean, I understand. I mean, there was a time you didn't know. Well, you know now. And we're still pretending it. So here's some other things that we know. What else do we know? We know America is getting older. The percentage of people who are older, right, are a bigger percentage now than they used to be. Because why? Because there's not that many little kids running around. How many families do you know have more than one child? More than two? More than three? Right? What's a ridiculously large family these days? You see anyone with 5 kids, it's like, oh my goodness, 5 kids. Whoa, that's a lot of kids. Right? Well, there were 8 kids in my family, and we weren't the only one with 8. I mean, there weren't very many. And still more like with 5 and 6 kids. That was pretty common. 5, 6, 7 kids. 4 kids. 3 kids. Everybody had 3 kids. Let's see. So we did get... wants me to get focused a little more on estate planning. Well, I see all this stuff I'm talking about, it's kind of the setup for estate planning. Because when people are doing their estates, right, when you're looking at this stuff, you got to look at I would suggest, you got to look at the big picture. It used to be that there weren't that many older people, and they didn't have that much in the way of demands, right? That people weren't living that long, they weren't that big a percentage, and their expectations were a lot less. Your grandparents' expectations were less at this stage of life than yours are. The older you get, your demands don't go down. Instead, you expect to still have a meaningful quality of life. You still expect to participate. You still expect to have a voice. Am I wrong about that? Who doesn't want to have a voice? Well, older folks weren't that way. The folks who were older folks to us, they were okay with it. They didn't expect much, and they didn't get it. But younger folks, baby boomer types, the people who are now the older folks, right? They have much higher demands, much greater expectations. So the old ways of doing things, wills and trusts and stuff like this, right? The old way it was done, that doesn't work anymore, right? It doesn't work anymore because you're living longer. There's more of you, and there's no cheap way to fix this problem. You have to take responsibility, and here's what I mean by that. When let's just kind of start at the start. Most folks, when they talk about estate planning, all right, let's focus on what is estate planning anyway? What is your estate? Your estate is the leftovers when you're dead. That's what it is. Your estate is you've died and you had some stuff, and the leftover stuff is your estate. And people want to plan for that. They'll say, ooh, well, if I die and I leave a bunch of stuff, I want to know where that stuff goes. Okay, well, why not? Just leave your toys out overnight, right? You just put the stuff in the front yard and go to bed, right? And hope people leave your stuff alone. It doesn't work like that. If you're not around, you want to know that your stuff goes where you want it to go. And for most people, that means doing nothing at all. That's what most people do, nothing at all. And it just goes to wherever the probate code says it goes. That's pretty typical. Now, some people, a lot of people, do a will. A will is an instruction, just a letter to the probate court saying, here's where I want my stuff to go. That's what a will is. Are you with me on this? So after you're dead and there's leftovers, right? Somewhere in that pile of leftovers is a note that says, hey, if anybody finds my leftovers hanging out over here, here's a note. Please read this note and do what the note says. It's called a will. And you have to take it to the probate court, who's sort of the garbage man who cleans out, the sanitation worker who's cleaning up your mess hanging out there. And they find the note and they say, oh, this is where this stuff should go. Okay, then. That's what your will is. That process of collecting your stuff now that you're not around and distributing it, right? That's called probate. No surprises. A trust is the shed that you take your stuff and you put it in the shed. You put it in the pantry, we call it. Right? Put it in the pantry. Take it off the driveway. Take it out of the yard. Put it away. Now, you're the one in charge of the pantry. This is the trust. A trust, right? Revocable living trust. Right? You take your stuff, you put it in the house, you put it in the pantry. That's your trust. And you say who can go into your house after you're gone. You put a key under the mat. Put a key under the mat for one of your kids. All right? And your trust says, hey, here are the people who can have the stuff that's in the pantry. Now, the nice thing about that is it's not outside in the rain. It's not outside in the weather. It's not outside for people, scavengers, to come and grab your stuff. Okay? It's all under lock and key. Now it's protected. At least that's the promise. The failure of trust-based planning is that there's no process. There's no follow-through. There's no making sure that your stuff ever gets inside. It's all still out in the front yard. It's all still out in the driveway. Right? Because why? Because you didn't put it in the trust. You didn't put it in the pantry. You didn't move it inside. Why didn't you move it inside? Well, because the lawyer gave you a memo that said, hey, you need to move this inside, but you didn't read the memo. And nobody else does either. 96% of these trusts fail, and that's why they fail. We'll talk about this more when we get back. You've been listening to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. You hate to cut it off, but welcome back to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. Give us a call, why don't you? 616-774-2424. That's 616-774-2424. We've got a bashful caller who wanted to know just sort of a estate planning overview. Now, here's the deal. Estate planning is wonderful. It's what happens to your stuff after you're dead, blah, blah. Wonderful, right? It's good to do. You should do it. But that's not the big deal. And this is why we talk so much about, you might call it current events or what have you. Because the more important thing is not what happens when you're, well, I don't know. Maybe you think it's more important that what happens after you're dead than what happens while you're alive. I don't know. Is there anybody against planning for what happens while you're alive? Is that problematic, as they say, problematic? So like I say, I mean, it's a good idea to figure out what happens to your stuff when you're gone. I always think it's probably a good idea to figure out how to hang on to some of it while you're here so it serves you. And that's why we talk about, bigger picture type stuff, because you're not dead yet. You are getting older, and you are getting to the point where these bigger picture, the macro, what they call the macro situation affects you personally, right? And that's why we focus on it, frankly. Because if you can't deal with that, there ain't going to be any leftovers, right? Remember, your estate is the leftovers when you're dead, but you're not dead yet. So wouldn't it be nice if you want to leave stuff to kids, if you want to leave stuff to the church or whomever, right? If you just want to live your life as you have earned to live your life, then it seems to me that hanging on to your stuff is probably not a bad idea. And if you ignore it, if you ignore the big trends, if you ignore the fact that there's more and more older people and it's more and more expensive, inflation is absolutely out of control. 16%. Are you kidding me? 16% in producer price index. That stuff is coming around. And it's going around and it's coming around. So either you're ready for it or you're not. And to my way of thinking, the biggest involuntary expense that you have, well, yeah, here we are in an America that's worried about food, right? What's the biggest American problem with food? There's too much of it. We eat too much. We're all too fat, most of us, right? And now they're talking about it's going to be so expensive to buy food. And you look at the infant formula thing. Oh, that wasn't that problem. Well, I don't know. They say it was a supply chain problem. Sounds pretty generic to me. Anyway, so if we haven't figured out how to hang on to your stuff for you, there isn't going to be a lot of stuff left over, right? And that's the America we're dealing with. And the question is, if you are not able to care for yourself, how's that going to happen? Who's going to do it? Well, the population of people who used to do it is shrinking. The population of people who need the services is ballooning. Okay? Ballooning, getting bigger. Right? So what are you going to do about it? Just nothing? Now, to our caller who wanted to know, well, I want to know about basic estate planning. Okay, here's the deal. Your estate is the leftover stuff when you're dead. When you're dead, that's the leftover stuff. All right? It was in your name. It's not anymore because why? You're dead. Yes. Your will, the will is instructions to the probate court on how you want your stuff to get divvied up. That's what it is. So when people say, oh, I have a will, I don't have to worry about probate. It's like, just shake your head at them. Little do you know, my friend. Because a will is nothing but instructions to probate court on how you want your stuff divvied up. That's what a will is. Nothing more, nothing less, but that's what it is. So if you think you're avoiding probate because you have a will, think again, because the only way a will works is in probate court. Okay? So if we're clear on that, let's move ahead. A trust. What's a trust? A trust is a structure. Sometimes you think of it, I think of it, as a pantry. Right? Your stuff is all out on the driveway right now. It's got you to defend it, you to protect it. You're using it out on the driveway. Pile of stuff. But if you're not around, now who uses your stuff? Now who's in control of your stuff? Well, it's not you anymore. You're gone. One way or the other, you're gone. Now you got a pile of stuff out on the driveway. Jeepers. Your will is just a note in that pile of stuff. And the probate court comes along and says, hey, what do we do with all this stuff? Oh, look, here's a note. I think I'll read it. Maybe I won't read it this time. I can't find it. Oh, I know what to do with this stuff. I have my own, and the probate court does have its own rules. The Estate Protected Individual Code has its own rules about what to do with your stuff. Now, some people say, I would rather not leave my stuff out on the driveway. I would like better control, so I'm going to put it in the pantry. I'm going to move it inside my house, inside a structure, right, that's limited, right, that's not just out there. It's called a trust, right? That's what I'm going to do. Put it in the pantry. And I'm going to throw a key under the doormat, under the welcome mat. I'm going to put a key under there for whoever I want to manage my stuff for me. Now, because it's not out on the driveway, the probate court doesn't get involved because there's no reason. There's no big mess to clean up. It's all inside. It's all in the pantry. All right? What's the problem? Person with the key distributes it as they're supposed to. Wonderful. The problem is that 96%, huge percentage of trusts fail. The trust that you got from your attorney in there. I challenge you, if you have a trust, you've done a trust, you say, oh, I don't have to listen to that guy. I got a trust. I say, well, go to the binder that you got, that 3-ring binder or however they did it, right? In there, usually on the top, but in there somewhere, are instructions. There's a letter to you saying that you're supposed to take the stuff off the driveway and put it in the trust. They don't call it a pantry or whatever. That's my language. But it says if you don't put your stuff in the trust, if you don't retitle your assets, right? If you don't retitle them, trust won't work. You're going to go through probate. That's what it says in there. Well, I know you didn't read it. Most people don't read anything in the trust, which is what they're counting on because they want to get the probate later on. Because if you leave your stuff outside, because you didn't put it in the trust, it's going through probate. That's the reality of the thing. All right? So millions of people have done trusts. Millions of trusts fail. One survey says 96% of trusts fail. Is it that high? I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know exactly. There is no exact number. You get different estimates. But I tell you what, everybody knows you've been played for a sucker with this trust. Everybody knows it. Your accountant knows it. Your insurance guy knows it. The banker knows it. Your financial advisor knows it. Everybody knows that people don't put their stuff in the trust. Your attorney, the guy who drew it up, he knows that you're not putting the stuff in he or she knows that you're not putting the stuff in the trust. How do they know that? Because nobody does. It doesn't happen. We've got 8 people. All they do in my firm, all they do all day is help people put stuff in trust and hold them to account. It's 2 to 6 month process to get people, and people don't like it. Nobody's like, oh boy, it's so wonderful to put the stuff in the trust. No. Ain't like that. Even with our doing most of the heavy lifting. I would say all of the heavy lifting. We do the heavy lifting, but still, why do I have to? This is the complaint you get. Well, my neighbors did it, and they got their trust right away. Why do I have to go through this process? Why can't I be like them? Because yours is going to work and theirs is going to fail? That's why? Anyway, that's what's going on with that's estate planning. In a nutshell, there's more, and we'll cover more in the next hour. But if you're wondering about wills and trust, that's the deal. You've been listening to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. Hello, and welcome to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney, and now is the time to give us a call, 616-774-2424, 616-774-2424. Drop me an email, david@davidcarrierlaw.com, and you can always go to the website, davidcarrierlaw.com. All kinds of good stuff on the website, frankly. So get on over there, sign up for a life plan workshop, and get the monkey off your back. Get this process started. We got a little message here. Let's see. Situation in with brother. Brother is taking money from mother's checking account from a trust fund they're both entitled to. Wants to know if to take it to civil court. Well, sure. If you've got, it's not really clear from the email. I wish they had stayed on the line. Not really clear whether or not this mom has died. Is the trust created? Is brother trustee of the trust? What's going on here? It is not at all unusual, for folks to put more than one kid on a checking account, savings account, whatever, any kind of investment account. That happens. Really a bad idea, and this is one of the reasons it's a bad idea, because what will brother say? Jim says brother's stealing the money. Brother Chuck says, I'm not stealing the money. I'm using it to maintain mom's house. I'm spending it on mom. Or, who the heck knows? There's no... Now, it says that there's a trust account, so maybe brother is the trustee of the trust. Maybe brother is spending money not for brother's use, but for mom's use. Is mom still around? Are we using the money for mom? Is there an argument over whether or not we're using the money for mom? Who knows? Don't know from the facts. But let's say that it's the case that let's say that mom has died. Okay, mom has died, and now brother is the trustee of the trust, and it has a bank account in it, and Jim suspects that brother is using the money in the trust, in this bank account, for his own purposes, that he's basically stealing the money. Well, that's one of the things you're not supposed to do as trustee, steal the money. You're not supposed to do that. Being trustee is a special trust and confidence. We rely on you, or you need to be honest and above board. You need to act in the interests of the other person, not in your own personal selfish interests. Okay? So, could brother be in trouble here? Yeah, brother could be in trouble, sure. And if you make the allegation, if you go to, and it's probate court that has jurisdiction over this kind of stuff. So now you're back in probate court. That's the court. That's the place you go when you have questions of trusts. And so you go to probate court and you say, hey, brother was supposed to pay mom's final bills and then split up the money. And instead, he's not paying the bills. He's not splitting up the money. And instead, he's spending it all on the sports book or going to the track or God knows what. Are you with me on this? So is that what's going on? Maybe. Could be. So it kind of sounds like that. I mean, otherwise, why are we complaining about brother, brother being using the trust money? Brother is supposed to be doing something wrong here. So if Jim is listening and wants to fill in some details, that'd be great. But if brother is using the money, if we make an allegation that brother is misusing trust funds, okay, that he's being a bad actor instead of a good trustee, now brother cannot use the trust money to defend himself. Are you with me on this? This is how it works. If you're the trustee, brother is the trustee here, and the trustee is doing bad things, and the trustee is accused of doing the bad things, right? That's all you need is the accusation. We haven't proven anything yet. Brother has to defend himself. Brother has to use his own money to defend himself, not trust money, not trust resources to defend himself, but his own do-re-mi, as they say. Okay? He's got to use his own. Now, he can get reimbursed later on. If he wins, then the trust can reimburse him for his own expenses in defending his actions. Yeah, you can get reimbursed. But he's not entitled, he doesn't get to use the trust fund to fight Brother Jim. So if Brother Jim says, hey, brother, you are misusing funds, Brother Bob, you're misusing funds. Brother Bob doesn't get to use the trust money to hire a lawyer, defend himself, what have you. He's got to defend himself against those charges using his own money. And then later on, he can get reimbursed if he wins. I'm saying that twice to be very clear about this. So if you're acting as a trustee, right, or you're thinking about acting as a trustee, it's a thankless task anyway. But here's another reason where, if you've got a family member who is obstreperous, is oppositional, defiant, is blah, 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 whatever, likely to be throwing around accusations of malfeasance, well, you got to be careful about that, because that person, if they make those allegations and they do it in probate court, you cannot use trust money to defend yourself. And the person who's being aggrieved, so in Jim's case, he thinks Brother Bob is ripping off the trust. Great, go ahead. You go to probate court to make those allegations. Brother Bob is not going to be able. It's not the case. I mean, some people get the idea that if I don't let the trustee get away with it, they're just going to use the trust money to defend themselves, and there'll be less money there because they use it all up. And no, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. So if you've got here's the thing with trusts, okay, and this whole fiduciary thing, the whole law thing. In America, we want people to trust one another. We want you to trust the other person, okay? And so in many different ways, with powers of attorney, with trusts, incorporations, limited liability companies, partnerships, there's a lot of ways, and this is one of the reasons America is so successful, because we're a high trust environment. If you buy something from California, you know that it's going to show up. And if it doesn't show up, you can sue that person and get consequences, get your damages, okay? That enables us, because of the court system, because of the lawyers. I know we all hate lawyers, but because of the lawyers, now we can trust each other because we can hold each other to account. It may seem weird, but in other countries, it's not that way. It's more of a tribal thing. It's more of a family thing. It's more of a, I can't go to court, right? Because they're all corrupt. I can only depend on what my family group, my tribal group will do to defend me. And it's all a power thing. You got idiots now who think that that's the way it works. These critical legal studies, idiots, morons. They think it's all about the power thing instead of something else. And as a consequence, there's a decrease in trust. And so now things are harder to get done. Still in all, we have this reservoir of trust, right? And the way this works is we give a lot of authority under a trust, a lot of authority to the trustee, okay? Because we want them to be free to do the smart things, to do the good things. The consequence of that, the other side of that teeter-totter, got a lot of responsibility on the, you're given a lot of responsibility, a lot of freedom to act. On the other hand, if you cheat, the penalties are unbelievable, right? If you cheat, if you steal from mom's trust, what have you, you can't use trust assets to defend yourself, right? You're liable for every nickel of damages. You might go to jail. There might be criminal consequences as well. Are you with me on this? So America works well because we trust each other, but if you break that trust, sky's coming down. You're listening to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. Welcome back to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. We're not surfing you. Well, channel surfing, I don't know. Give us a call, 616-774-2424. That's area code 616-774-2424. You can always drop us an email, david@davidcarrierlaw.com. Pretty boring there, but there it is. david@davidcarrierlaw.com. Or just go to the website, davidcarrierlaw.com. You can sign up for a workshop. You can download materials, all kinds of great stuff to do it's better than going on vacation. You know what I mean? If you were thinking of taking a vacation this summer and instead you went to the website, wow, you'd save yourself some money, stay in the air conditioning, and you would learn a lot. We've got Jim on the line. Hello, Jim. Welcome to the David Carrier Show.
Hello.
Hi. How can I help?
I called last week and asked you some, off the air, asked you some questions about the PACE program.
Sure.
And I would like to fill in some blanks that we didn't get answers for.
Okie doke.
My mother-in-law is 93 years old, lives in Oceana County in Hart.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And PACE program is not available in that area, in Oceana County.
No, actually, the Newaygo... There's a PACE program in Newaygo. Okay.
She can go to Newaygo County, but transportation there and the services they provide from Newaygo County to PACE, she has to pay for it. The transportation costs. If she wants to go to Newaygo, or they come and get her to bring her to their site in Newaygo County, she has to pay for it.
Well, now, it depends on how much income does she have a month. I mean, are they talking about private pay PACE?
Well, we're talking about the PACE that's available now that you said she can get on regardless the lacks the restrictions on it.
Well, that's with regard to assets. With regard to assets, right? Right now,
yes.
You can divest assets and they don't care. Unlike the other Medicaid programs where it's a 5-year wait, there is no wait right now with PACE. But there's an income requirement as well. You have to have less than $2,534 a month of income Is she over income? Is that the problem? Maybe. Does she have Social Security and a pension?
I'm a little confused about you're saying that they set those requirements aside, and anybody can qualify for PACE now.
No, I wouldn't say that. What I'm talking about. Okay, so
well,
you got two kinds.
Made me believe on your previous shows.
Well, let's be clear about it.
And they took the requirement off, and they haven't reinstated it yet because of COVID.
Yeah. What I'm talking about very specifically is the asset, your limit on assets. See, what they took off.
She's over. Her income is over that limit.
Okay. So why is her income? All right. So let's back up just so there's no confusion. For any Medicaid program with an asset requirement, your asset, and there's some without asset requirement, they're just income based. But for the asset ones, you have to be below $2,000 of countable assets. You can have a car, you can have a house. There's various things you can have, but for countable assets, right, you got to be below $2,000. All right. Now, if you give stuff away for the waiver program, if you give stuff away for long-term care,
5-year program,
5-year deal. There is no 5-year deal with PACE. So right now, under the COVID rules, if you give stuff away, there's no penalty. You have to tell them, I gave away my cottage or boat or whatever, but there's no penalty period associated with that. Under PACE, under the COVID rules.
She can basically go to PACE in Newaygo County and tell them she's given all of her assets away. She has to prove this. There has to be an accounting done on what she has given away.
Yeah, but that's not the complete story. That's not the whole story. Okay, that's the asset part of the story.
That's what I'm trying to get at, is the whole story here.
Got it. So when I say, hey, look, under the COVID rules, you can have this stuff, right, and still qualify for PACE, I'm shorthanding things for the radio. I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into making.
Well, Dave, I'm just trying to understand what you're saying.
Right. So let me reiterate.
You got to be more. You got to be more complete on this stuff.
Yeah. So here's how it works. If you're over assets because you have a cottage, because you have too much in savings or what have you, then you can either give it all away. You just give it away to your kids or whomever. You can do that. There's a trust that we do routinely. You put the assets in the trust where you retain control over the trust. Now, for Medicaid purposes, it's still a divestment, right? For Medicaid purposes, it's a divestment. And now those assets don't count. But you didn't give it all away. You know what I mean? You didn't give up control over those assets. But you did this trust, which has the same effect. Now, that's with regard to assets. And that's a big deal, okay? Because most folks are what they call NFQ, not financially qualified, because they've got too much stuff. Now, there's also...
That's basically my mother-in-law's case.
Okay, but there's
there's also
an income limit. There's an income limit of $2,534. $2,534 is the income limit. Now, what we found is, with a lot of folks, the Social Security and the pension, especially older folks, your mother-in-law's age, Social Security and pension are not enough to reach the $2,530. It's very unusual where Social Security plus pension equals that amount. But what you do see...
Yeah, she's well above that.
Well, is it Social Security and pension? Because the way a lot of older folks get above that is with annuities. That's my point.
She's got other investment income, annuities, CDs. She's been very, very prosperous.
Okay. So what we need to do in a given case is you look at that and you say, okay, how much of the income, which puts us over 2534, how much of that income is annuities, CDs, investment return, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. And you strip that away because those are assets, those financial assets, right? Those financial can be divested, can be given away, can go into this trust, right? That builds up the money for her, okay? But because she doesn't take it personally anymore, because those assets have been divested, right? Now those don't count either. See, that's why this is a difficult thing to do on the radio, because I can't look at a financial statement and say, oh, you've got this much income from here and that much income from there, and okay, now you separate it out. And a lot of people.
This is what we are in the process of doing right now. This is what we're in the process of doing right now, which leads me to my other question.
Sure.
About power of attorney. Mm-hmm. My wife has been named her mother's power of attorney.
Okay.
And we've gone to banks and insurance companies about annuities, and they will not recognize her as power of attorney.
Did they tell you why?
That's just their rules. They will not do it.
Well, you can't just not do it. I mean,
That's what they're telling her. The only people that are more than willing to recognize and cooperate with us doing this, getting her financial records and things in a,
Hey,
together.
Jim, that music means I got to get out. Stick around through the news, and we'll get back to it. Okay? Are you with me on that? Because this is a real problem. The people not accepting powers of attorney, and there's things that can be done about it. Okay? So just stick on through
that's what we need to find out.
Yeah, just stick on through the news. Okay. We'll be right back. You're listening to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. Welcome back to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. Now, we've got Jim on the line. Jim's got some questions and carry over from last week. And here's the thing. We've got what I call radio show answers to folks' questions. And radio show answers are not based on a detailed investigation of what's actually going on, but we try to, and I think it's pretty successfully. I mean, we're accurate with what we say, but it leads to confusion sometimes. So when we have a situation like this one, where we're asking questions about a real person and wondering about their real eligibility, the way we don't just have them come in the office anyway. I mean, the first thing we always do is you go through an hour and a half. We call it the discovery meeting, and it's on the phone with a 40-year veteran of Department of Health and Human Services, now retired, working for us. And she goes through with, just asking all the sorts of questions that we're asking now. Where did the money come from? Is it pension? Is it Social Security? Is it annuities? Is it investments? What are we dealing with? How old is the person? What are their needs? On and on. What documents are in place? And in an hour and a half, and sometimes it's shorter. We can get it done occasionally in 45 minutes, but generally speaking, it takes that kind of discovery just to find out what's going on in a given case, so that and we don't stop there. I mean, not until everything's documented, until you actually see the paper that says this is the number and here's how it all goes down. Then you can't really put together a final plan, and even then, things can get changed by circumstances. So that's my way of saying, hey, what we say on the radio, it's not an application. I haven't reviewed anything yet. But so, this is where the misunderstandings and what have you creep in. Now, it doesn't cost anything to do a discovery. It doesn't cost anything to have us analyze it, which again takes quite a bit of time. But then we have you come in, we analyze it, say, look, based on what you've told us, is there any corrections to it? We asked you to bring this additional information in. Then we've got a solid foundation. We can start saying, okay, maybe this is what you want to do, or maybe that's what you want to do. But again, I would stand by anything we say on the radio as accurate, given the information that we have. Now, we've got a problem, so just take care of that. We've got a problem with regard to getting powers of attorney accepted. where you may have a completely valid power of attorney, but they just won't. It's our policy, or say something stupid like that, that they won't accept the power of attorney in order to get financial information or what have you. Is that what's going on here, Jim? They're just saying, no, they won't be specific. They're just saying, we won't take it.
That's what's happening with banks, insurance companies. That's the process my wife and I are in, trying to help my mother-in-law get her financial information together to do the discovery meeting you were just talking about.
Yeah, it can be a...
The problem we're running into with that is not getting her power of attorney recognized, so we can get these things in order.
No, I'm with you on that.
It's a catch-22.
Well, here's what you do when you can't get cooperation from the financial institutions, what have you. Generally,
mitigate or litigate.
There's that. I'm a lover, not a fighter. I mean, I just so like you've got insurance companies, for example, that will not accept a power of attorney that's more than 6 months old or something stupid like that. So generally, you get around that by giving them an affidavit that the power of attorney is still valid. We do that with our own sometimes. We just had one last week where the bank just refused to accept the power of attorney. Well, in order to add a beneficiary or transfer it to a trust, it was something like that. And so our response was fine. They recognized it for making withdrawals, so we're withdrawing all the money and we're putting it in a bank that'll recognize the power of attorney. We've got to.
That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
Putting it in a credit union that accepts it without question.
There you go. Well, but be very, very careful.
They wouldn't let us do it. The bank wouldn't let us do it. And the attorney that drew up the power of attorney, his office is right across the street from the bank. We told them to go talk to them. No, they don't want to talk to them.
No. Yeah, I mean that happens, especially. Well, it does. Well, but that's why I would suggest. I mean that's one of the naked sales pitch here. But I mean that's one of the advantages of work because we do this stuff all the time. And it's no big deal.
I understand, Dave.
Yeah. Well, we have a Medicaid application. We just got it approved, and the bank that wasn't a bank. It was an insurance company in Ohio. Refused to let us. We needed to cash in a life insurance policy or something like that. Do something with life insurance policy, and the life insurance company said no, and we had to go all the way to the top and yell and scream and everything else. And eventually they did enough of what we needed done. They didn't really cooperate, but they did enough of what we needed done in order to get the benefits started. But, I mean...
That's exactly where we are right now.
Yeah. Well, it was a 3-week process.
We're doing the same thing.
Dealing
with insurance companies out of state and trying to get this all this information together.
Yep. Well, nobody ever said it was easy. I didn't say it was easy.
Oh, no, I understand, and we're doing our best to try to get it done, but we're stuck with not getting recognized with the power of attorney.
Yeah. Well, see, here's the thing, Jim, and again, more naked self-promotion here and all that. I mean, how many times have you done this?
How many times have we done it?
Yeah.
Well, this should have been the second time. My parents passed away, and I was not the person left in control there either, and it was handled very poorly. And now I'm trying to get ahead of this for my mother-in-law and my wife to get her situation, unquestionably in control.
Well, is it unreasonable to think that if we did this like thousands of times, we might get better results than someone who's trying it for the second time?
Certainly, Dave. I'm not saying you don't know what you're doing. I'm trying to find out how to do it.
Well, what do you do for a living, if I could ask? Or did you do before you retired, if you were retired?
I am a retired construction worker.
Okay. Who do you think is better at, whether it's putting up sheathing or putting on 2x4s? Where, you or me?
Well,
Pouring
I don't know, you might
concrete.
be
Who's
pretty
better at
handy,
that?
and I might be pretty handy too.
Well, I try to be handy, But look, here's the thing. I just replaced the dishwasher, right? I replaced all the pieces, parts inside. It still didn't work, so I'm like, screw it. I'm just going to get a new dishwasher. So I installed the dishwasher. My kid and I, 14 years old, and I think it's good for him to do that kind of thing. But whether I'm replacing the dishwasher, the disposal, fixing the brakes on the truck, whatever, all things that I've done in the last year or so, replace a water heater, that was the beginning of COVID, right? I can do that stuff.
Right.
It just takes me 3 days instead of 3 hours because I don't really know what I'm doing. Well, I don't, but I kind of know. I can kind of figure it out. So, and I'm not willing.
I know what you're saying, Dave. I do. I understand what you're saying, and if you would, from my point of view, I understand it takes time to do these things, and we're trying to do the best we can.
Yeah, but see, we're experts at being pains in the ass to these people. I mean, that's what you have to do. You just have to make it more painful for them to say no than to say yes. And if they say no and you go away and you're a civilian, and most civilians just kind of go away.
A letter from me won't get them on the fire. A letter from an attorney will.
Sometimes, and sometimes it just takes phone call after a threatening phone call, after another phone call, after one more phone call. But this is ridiculous. Let's get out of here. And
well, we've been having some success.
Good.
And some has gone very smoothly, and some is like hitting a brick wall.
Yeah, I would never say that it doesn't work ever. I'm just saying. Oh, and there's the music. I tell you what, hang around for the last bit, and we'll, if you want to,
Well, no, I'm good, Dave. If I have any more questions, I'll certainly contact you again. But we're gonna put up the good fight here and keep struggling on.
Soldier on. Okay. Thank you, Jim. Take care.
Thank you.
You betcha.
Bye.
You're listening to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. Welcome back to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. Just to recap, what are we talking about this week? Well, number one, we're in an environment right now where inflation is out of control, where controlling your expenses is going to be more and more difficult. And why is that important? Because one of the things that's going up fastest is the cost of long-term care. And what we're talking about here is how do we plan for those costs? Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, those are the big three that support older Americans. Social Security is how we pay for what? Income. People need income. We don't make them go broke before they get the income. Social Security, you paid in, you get paid out. Okay, seems pretty normal. Tax dollars at work. Same way with Medicare. You need a new hip, you need a bypass, whatever it is, okay? The acute care, you fell and you broke your leg, okay? Medicare, that's how we take care of that. Again, you paid in, you get paid back. Tax dollars at work. Medicaid is how we do the long-term care part of it. Now, here's where it gets different. Here's where it gets totally bogus, in my opinion, right? They don't make you go broke to get Medicare. They don't make you go broke to get Social Security. But when it comes to long-term care, okay, now you got to go broke. How did that get to be a good idea? You paid in, like you paid into the other things, the other programs, the other government. The government doesn't have any money on its own. It only has what it takes from you. So I mean, raise your hand. Oh, yeah, I paid in, but I don't want anything back because it's like church, except eternal life. I mean, that's a pretty good return on your weekly attendance, right? Eternal life, that's not so bad. How about a bed in a nursing home when you need it? How about a little long-term care when you need it? Well, that's payback on your taxes. But people want I've asked this question many, many times. I mean, people get it with Social Security. They understand with Medicare. Yeah, I paid in. The idea that they wouldn't pay me back is just ludicrous. It's absurd. but we accept it somehow when it comes to long-term care. I don't understand why, and I don't think you should have to. It seems to me that when you pay in, you should get back. And I don't mind that the extra goes to other people, and maybe you never need it, right? Maybe one of the 30%, because the government says 70% of folks age 65 will need, on average, 3 years of skilled nursing care. That's longtermcare.gov. Don't believe me, go look for yourself. Longtermcare. And run it all together. Longtermcare.gov, and it explains all. It's all right there. So maybe you're one of the 30%. Maybe you never need it. Well, that's okay. I don't mind taking care of my fellow Americans. That's fine. All right, that's fine. But if I'm the one who needs it and I paid for it, I don't understand why I have to pay again. Now, it's true, they make us jump through some hoops, all this stuff that we talk about. They make us jump through some hoops in order not to pay twice. Well, that's just life, ain't it? I mean, if you want a tax refund, if you want to pay the right amount of taxes, you want to take your deductions and everything else, you got to fill out a tax return. You got to do that correctly. And there are ways of doing your taxes that are completely legitimate, okay under the law, that means that you pay less tax than if you did things in another way. It's the same thing, seems like to me. Now, if you don't want to pay back, if you think the government knows what to do with your money better than you do, you don't need me. Fine by me, if that's what you're thinking. The other thing I'd like to touch on here, and this is again, I think what Jim brings up. They're going through the do-it-yourselfer idea, which, look, more power to you. I mean, America is a nation of do-it-yourselfers. I think to the extent that, so I have a 1956 Chevrolet, and a lot of that stuff you can do yourself. A lot of the work you can do yourself. A modern car with all the computers and all the rest of that stuff, yeah, good luck. You can't even. Now, there'll be people who say, well, yeah, all you have to do is you have to know these skills and then you can do it. But, hey, those are beyond me. And so I think to the extent that we're getting beyond being able to do things for ourselves, I think that's a negative. I mean, I do think that, it may take hours longer for me to install a dishwasher or a disposal or, redo the brakes on the truck or something like that. I think but I like doing it. It gives me some satisfaction, and I don't mind showing the kid how to do it. I mean, I think that's a good thing. And I do think it's a good thing for people to do the do-it-yourselfer thing more rather than less. I think that's a good thing. On the other hand, if I wasn't, careful and meticulous and all the rest of it, I'd have a flood in the kitchen from either the disposal or the dishwasher, right? My brakes would fail. I mean, there's consequences to doing it yourself, right? And and I take it real slow, and I know I do, and it's, I'm sure that anybody who actually knew what the hell they were doing with the brakes or the appliances, or even getting the water heater in, I did a lot of it myself, but then thank God, Mark Kramer, a good buddy of mine, shows up. And Mark is a tool and die guy, and we had it done. It would have taken me 2 full days. He shows up, and it took a day, and most of that was before he showed up because he knew what the heck he was doing, right? Me, I'm does this fit? Does this? How do we do this? How do we do that? Eventually we got it done, but there are folks who actually know how to do stuff, right? And I guess all I'm saying is, give it a try. Go ahead. Don't submit the application. God, please don't do that because you're committing at that point. But, do the planning, talk to the people. Don't. That's all good. Go ahead and do that. That's fine. But don't do a Medicaid application based on a YouTube video or a radio show, because there's just too many opportunities there, too many opportunities for miscommunication. Everything I say might be completely accurate, and yet because the way I interpret what someone's telling me or the way they interpret what I'm saying, now we're off the beam. Now it doesn't work. You don't get the benefits that you would expect to get, that you'd be entitled to. So do it yourself. That's fine. But here's the other thing. And he went to an attorney to get this power of attorney that's not working for him. I got to tell you, most of the powers of attorney that we see, we can't use them. And I mean, whether it's downloaded, whether it's from an attorney or whatever, because it's the philosophy is not, how do I save assets? How do I protect stuff? The philosophy is, how do I get the bills paid? How do I get someone, to be able to sign off on stuff? That's a completely different philosophy, and it results in a completely different power of attorney. So, love to see you at a life plan workshop. Go to the website, davidcarrierlaw.com. Come to one of the life plan workshops. You'll learn a lot. Maybe do it on your own. God bless you. But if you want some help, that's what we're here for. You've been listening to The David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney.